You healed instead of striking back, so heaven struck in silence, right through their ego. You didn't chase revenge. That's why karma ran faster for you. Their apology never came, but the mirror they avoid now whispers it back daily. They thought silence meant weakness, until it became the courtroom of their guilt. My child, your absence haunted them more than your presence ever could. You forgave, but the stars didn't forget. You didn't return the pain, so God returned it wrapped in lesson. While you cried alone, destiny engraved your name on a throne. You let go, but heaven held the grudge. My child, your peace was the verdict, they still live on trial. They laughed while you bled, but destiny recorded every drop. You walked away, they still stumble where your shadow last stood. Your mercy delayed judgment, not erased it. You didn't need revenge. Your glow became their reckoning. They touched what was sacred, now even sleep denies them sanctuary. They buried your kindness, now grow weeds in every field they plant. You stayed silent, the universe screamed. My child, what they called weakness, the heavens named holy restraint. You moved on. Destiny moved in. They mocked your tears, now thirst in deserts of their own making. You whispered grace. God echoed fire. You showed mercy. Time showed them the bill. Your silence carved a prophecy they can't escape. You planted love. They watered hate. But storms remember seeds. My child, you forgave, but the wind remembers names. Their smirk aged into shame. You offered closure, they slammed doors. Now echoes haunt them. You rose without grudge. That's why gravity turned on them. They think you're over it, but destiny isn't. You didn't lift a finger, so karma lifted its sword. Their reward was hollow. Yours was eternal. You bowed out. Heaven stood up. They drank joy from your pain, now thirst and regret. You buried the bitterness. Destiny exhumed the truth. You cried in faith. They laughed in ignorance. My child, your healing became the loudest justice. You rose through silence, they drown in echoes. You outgrew the blade, so fate cut deeper. You broke the cycle, they relive it nightly. They left scars. You left prophecy. You lit candles, they chased shadows. My child, you forgave them, but their soul won't. You held your fire. Now lightning answers for you. They think it's coincidence, but heaven counts in silence. Your strength bloomed in pain, now their joy withers. They blamed you to sleep at night, then dreamed of your eyes. You walked away from the war, now they fight memories. You wanted peace. Destiny gave you power. They thought you lost, until luck left with you. If this touched your soul, don't scroll, like, comment your favorite quote, and subscribe for more. You didn't need to curse them. Time already did. My child, their downfall was rehearsed in your silence. They watched you fall, but the rise was recorded in heaven's ink. They doubted your value. Now every echo costs them peace. Your stillness lit bonfires in their shame. You chose light. They now fear every dawn. They traded your loyalty for illusion, now sleep with ghosts. Your absence now plays louder than their excuses. My child, you walked in love, they marched toward ruin. You wept in silence, so thunder answered on your behalf. They fed on your ache. Now famine knows their name. You turned the page, they're stuck rereading their lie. Their hands are stained with the peace they ruined. They prayed you'd fail, now pray for your forgiveness. You planted no vengeance, yet storms bloom where they walk. Their shadow flinches where your name is remembered. They can't unsee your grace, no matter how far they run. Your pain matured into prophecy. My child, you stepped aside, so destiny could strike. They held grudges, you held grace. Who do you think heaven chose? Their lies outlived their peace. You didn't cast a spell. You broke their mirror. They replaced you, now even gold feels counterfeit. They scoffed at your silence. Now the silence echoes back their sins. Your detour became their dead end. You healed forward, they spiral backward. They won battles. You became the victory. Their laughter once hurt, now sounds hollow even to them. My child, you wept. But heaven turned every tear into thunder. You let them go, they still carry your name like a wound. They buried the truth. It grew into their consequence. You asked for peace, destiny handed them a mirror. You grew. They withered pretending you didn't. They danced on your grief. Now silence plays their requiem. Your love aged into legend, their ego crumbled like ash. You rose in stillness, they fell trying to be louder. You prayed for healing. Heaven delivered justice. They left with pride. Lost their soul in return. My child, your dignity sentenced them. You let go. Gravity did not. Their smirk aged into longing. You were their blessing, now their ghost. Your silence is the haunting. You outgrew revenge. They shrank under truth. My child, you healed with heaven, so it fought for you. They can't speak your name without swallowing regret. Your mercy was the test. They failed. They mocked your depth. Now drown in shallow pleasures. You blessed them with love, they cursed themselves with loss. Their reward was loud. Your revenge was holy. You turned the other cheek. Karma kissed theirs. You didn't wish them pain. It found them anyway. They wore masks. Now even truth avoids them. You were the sanctuary. They locked themselves out. My child, you were divine. They gambled on dust. Their pride bloomed into ruin. You stepped back. The universe stepped in. They broke what was sacred, now fear the sacred within. You were the lesson, they flunked fate. You let go, destiny held on. You gave gold. They traded it for glitter, and choked. Their memory of you now aches in places medicine can't reach. They ran from love, right into their own reflection. You gave warmth. Now they shiver under every moon. You healed. They haunt themselves. They replaced you, but the silence knows better. You became art, while they aged into noise. They see you shining and pretend the sun betrayed them. They thought they moved on. But their wounds spell your name. You left, now their world skips every beat you once filled. Your strength frightens them more than your love ever did. They lost you, and called it growth. You didn't block them. Truth did. You asked for peace. Heaven removed them. My child, you sowed compassion, they reap consequence. They ache for the version of you they destroyed. You gave truth, they traded for lies. Now beg for clarity. You walked away with grace. Their shadow begs for your return. Their apology never came, but your glow testifies. You were their mirror. Now they can't face their own. You never asked for revenge. Heaven simply echoed your silence louder than their betrayal. Their cruelty had timestamps. So did your miracles. They laughed. Now they live inside the very storm they mocked you from. You didn't curse them. You healed, and that cursed them more. You walked away. Destiny stayed behind and took notes. They thought they got away with it, until their luck started limping. You chose peace. That's when karma opened its ledger. You didn't fight back. Time became your sword. They broke you. But only your silence held the blade. Your forgiveness screamed louder than vengeance ever could. You mourned in private. Now they unravel in public. Their smile was a lie. Yours became law. You buried the pain. But it rose and found them. They threw stones. You built a temple. You offered grace. They chose games. Destiny chose justice. Your prayers were weapons disguised as mercy. They didn't believe in consequences. You became the proof. You wept like a lamb. Destiny roared like a lion. You didn't plot. The stars did it for you. They escaped your presence. But not your echoes. They laughed at your stillness. Now dread their own reflection. You moved on. Their guilt followed like a shadow. You healed. Their punishment was watching you shine. They didn't fall apart. They just ran out of lies. Your soul didn't seek revenge, it attracted divine recompense. They chose betrayal. You chose rebirth. They were the weapon. You were the resurrection. You gave them everything. Now they can't hold anything. Their apologies came too late, your peace had already closed the door. They tricked you. But couldn't deceive time. You were the test. They chose failure. They mocked your tears. Now their joy feels borrowed. You stayed silent. So the universe screamed. They left you empty. Now drink from dry wells. You didn't light the fire. But you became the flame. You didn't push them away. Truth did. You didn't need revenge. You became the lesson. You held back. Destiny didn't. They left laughing. Now cry into the silence they created. You forgave them. The universe did not. You kept walking. Their karma sprinted to catch up. They fed you lies. You birthed light. You let go. Justice did not. You stayed soft. Destiny sharpened the edges. They thought your silence was weakness. It was divine restraint. You didn't dig their grave. You just stopped filling yours. You didn't strike back. You simply became unreachable. You gave truth. They choked on it years later. You cried for peace. They now bleed in it. If this touched your soul, don't scroll, like, comment your favorite quote, and subscribe for more. You broke beautifully. They now live in the ruins. You turned pain into prophecy. They destroyed a version of you. God released another. You walked away bleeding. They now sleep beside guilt. You prayed for their peace. It never came. You whispered grace. The wind carried it as judgment. They mistook your silence for amnesia. But fate remembered. You stayed soft. Their heart turned to ash. You gave closure. They weaponized it and lost everything. You kept receipts in your spirit. So did God. They chose betrayal. Your healing chose revenge. You let them go. The divine didn't. You were their miracle. They traded you for noise. You offered heaven. They stayed addicted to chaos. They broke your heart. Then feared your growth. You didn't ruin them. Their conscience did. You carried them. Their arms were too full for grace. You didn't chase. Destiny did. You wept for love. They now drown in regret. You kept your hands clean. So the sky got dirty. You stopped begging. Now they pray. You held space. They ran out of time. You didn't vanish. They just looked too late. You never cursed them. But the silence did. They ran from healing. You became it. You glowed in grief. They cracked in comfort. They denied your worth. Now pay in silence. You sang forgiveness. The world turned it into thunder. You rose. Their lies fell apart. You whispered mercy. Time delivered wrath. You stayed kind. That's what doomed them. You were stillness. They are now restless. You loved deeply. That's what cursed them. They denied the truth. But now live inside it. You planted faith. They watered karma. You were sacred. They were temporary. You didn't look back. That's when they unraveled. You didn't demand payback. But the winds carried it anyway. You released them. The universe gripped tighter. You stepped aside. Their downfall stepped in. You showed them God. They chose games. You held the mirror. They broke it. Still bleeding. You offered grace. They mocked it. Regret doesn't sleep. You left empty. They now crave your absence. You healed. Their memory of you did not. You rose with silence. They now whisper your name in panic. You chose to forget. But destiny did not. You were the light. They burned their own hands. You stayed true. That's why they're haunted. They begged for your peace. After they shattered it. You were the cross they laughed at. Now worship silently. They forgot your love. But not its absence. They said you'd fade. But their blessings did. You never sought closure. That's why they never found any. You offered a future. They chose delay. You were a lifeboat. They sunk their own ship. They lost you in arrogance. Found emptiness in return. You were their anchor. They now drift without name. You wept. Time listened. You walked away. Their path collapsed behind you. You stayed human. They played God and lost. You gave softness. They armed themselves. Against love. You asked for clarity. They replied with chaos. You broke silently. The stars recorded it. You forgave them. Your energy didn't. You carried them. They tripped over their ego.